The house at 1247 Willowbrook Lane was an insult to the neighbourhood. That's what Margaret Thornton told anyone who would listen. The lawn hadn't been mowed in 6 weeks. Weeds choked the flower beds where roses once bloomed. Paint peeled from the shutters like dead skin. The mailbox leaned at an angle that suggested defeat, and inside that house lived a man the neighbourhood had decided to forget. His name was Horace P. Gentry, 78 years old, widower, veteran, the kind of man who kept his curtains drawn and his past buried, the kind of man who didn't belong in a place like Willowbrook Estates. Willowbrook Estates wasn't just a neighbourhood, it was a statement. Manicured lawns, European sedans, HOA meetings where people argued about the acceptable shade of beige for mailbox posts. The residents didn't just live there, they performed there. Every trimmed hedge was a declaration. Every polished driveway was proof of worth. And Horace P. Gentry's house was a crack in the porcelain. Margaret Thornton stood on her front porch that Tuesday morning, coffee cup in hand, staring at the offence across the street. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her husband, Richard, had already left for his law firm downtown. Her children were grown and gone. All she had left was this: the neighbourhood, the standards, the control. She pulled out her phone and opened the HOA group chat. Still no improvement at 1247. She typed, "This has gone on long enough." The responses came fast. Absolutely unacceptable. Property values are dropping. Someone needs to do something. Margaret smiled. Someone would. Inside 1247 Willowbrook Lane, Horace sat in his recliner, the same one he'd sat in for the past 11 years. The same one his wife Dorothy had picked out before the cancer took her. The fabric was worn thin on the armrests. Springs poked through the cushion, but it was his. The television played the morning news. He wasn't watching. He never really watched. It was just noise. Noise to fill the silence that had swallowed his life whole. His hands rested on his lap, thick knuckles, scarred fingers, hands that had held rifles and pulled men from burning vehicles and signed discharge papers that meant nothing to anyone anymore. On the side table sat a glass of water and a pill organizer, Monday through Sunday, morning and night. 14 little compartments holding 14 little reminders that his body was failing him one prescription at a time. He reached for the Tuesday morning slot. Arthritis made his fingers stiff. He fumbled with the lid. The pills scattered across the table. One rolled onto the floor. He didn't bother picking it up. Outside, a car door slammed. Horace didn't move. Another door. Voices. He still didn't move. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. Official. Authoritative. Horace pushed himself out of the recliner with a grunt. His knees protested. His back ached. He shuffled to the door in slippers that had lost their soles and a flannel shirt that had lost its buttons. He opened the door to 2 police officers. The younger one, Officer Dalton, looked uncomfortable. The older one, Sergeant Pruitt, looked tired. "Mr. Gentry?" Pruitt's voice was flat. "Professional, that's me. We've received multiple complaints from your neighbors regarding code violations. Lawn maintenance, exterior upkeep. The HOA has filed a formal citation." Horace stared at them. He didn't blink. "You understand what I'm telling you?" Pruitt continued. "I understand. You'll need to address these issues within 14 days, or face fines, possibly legal action." Horace nodded slowly. "Anything else?" Pruitt glanced at Dalton. Dalton shifted his weight. Neither of them wanted to be there. "Just take care of it, sir." Horace started to close the door. "Mr. Gentry," Dalton spoke up. His voice was softer, younger. "If you need help, resources. There are programs for veterans. I don't need help." The door closed. Across the street, Margaret watched from behind her curtains. She saw the officers walk back to their patrol car. She saw them pause, talk, look back at the house. Then they drove away. She smiled again. Progress. But Margaret Thornton didn't know what was coming. None of them did, because 3,000 miles away, in a palace overlooking the North Sea, a man in a tailored suit was making a phone call that would change everything. His name was Victor, and he had been searching for Horace P. Gentry for 47 years. The call lasted 6 minutes. When it ended, Victor stood from his desk and walked to the window. He looked out at the city below, the cobblestone streets, the ancient cathedral, the harbour where fishing boats bobbed in the morning tide. He thought about a different harbour, a different time, a different version of himself, a version that was 8 years old and starving and hiding in the cargo hold of a refugee ship, a version that would have died if not for a young American soldier who found him and gave him half a chocolate bar and promised him everything would be okay. Victor had spent decades trying to find that soldier, decades searching through military records and veteran databases and faded photographs. He'd hired investigators, offered rewards, followed dead ends, until 3 days ago, a retired army clerk in Virginia had finally matched a name to a face. Horace P. Gentry, 1247, Willowbrook Lane, alive, alone, forgotten. Victor turned from the window and pressed a button on his desk. "Prepare the plane," he said. "We leave tonight." Back in Willowbrook Estates, the day continued as it always did. Lawn services arrived in white trucks. Nannies pushed strollers. Delivery drivers dropped packages on doorsteps that cost more than most people's cars. And Horace sat in his recliner, staring at nothing. He didn't think about the police. He didn't think about the neighbors. He didn't think about the lawn or the paint or the mailbox. He thought about Dorothy, the way she used to hum while she cooked, the way she'd rest her hand on his shoulder when she walked past, the way she'd look at him in the morning, eyes still soft with sleep, and say, "Good morning, soldier." She'd been gone 11 years, but the house still smelled like her, lavender and vanilla. Memory made solid. He closed his eyes. The knock came again. This time it was louder, more insistent. Horace opened his eyes, checked the clock. 2:47 p.m. He wasn't expecting anyone. He was never expecting anyone. He pushed himself up again, shuffled to the door again, opened it again. Margaret Thornton stood on his porch, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Gentry," she said, not waiting for him to speak. "I'm Margaret Thornton, HOA President. I'm here to conduct a formal inspection of your property's exterior compliance." Horace looked at her, then at the clipboard, then back at her. "No. Excuse me?" I said no. Margaret's smile tightened. "Mr. Gentry, this isn't optional. According to HOA bylaws, Section 12, subsection 4, I don't care. You signed an agreement when you purchased this property. My wife signed it. She's dead." The words hung in the air like smoke. Margaret's smile vanished. "That doesn't change your legal obligation. Get off my porch. Mr. Gentry, now." He closed the door, locked it, walked back to his recliner. Outside, Margaret stood frozen. Her face flushed red. Her hands trembled. No one spoke to her like that. No one dismissed her like that. She pulled out her phone and opened the group chat. "Emergency meeting tonight," she typed. "We're filing a formal petition to force compliance. This ends now." The meeting happened at 7 p.m. in the Thorntons' living room. 12 residents showed up. Coffee and cookies were served. A petition was drafted. Signatures were collected. The petition demanded immediate action. Fines, liens, forced sale if necessary. They called it protecting property values. They called it maintaining standards. They didn't call it what it was. By 9 p.m., the petition had 17 signatures. By midnight, it had been emailed to the County Code Enforcement Office, the local police department, and the HOA's attorney. Margaret went to bed satisfied. Horace went to bed alone. The next morning, Wednesday, Officer Dalton returned. This time he wasn't alone. A code enforcement officer named Stevens accompanied him. Stevens carried a tablet and a camera. They knocked. Horace didn't answer. They knocked again. Still nothing. Stevens walked around the property taking photographs. The overgrown lawn, the peeling paint, the cracked driveway, the rusted gutter. Every violation documented, every failure recorded. When they returned to the front porch, Horace was standing in the doorway. "You need to let us in," Stevens said. "Interior inspection." "No, sir, we have the authority. You have nothing. Get off my property." Dalton stepped forward. "Mr. Gentry, please, we're just trying to help." "I don't need help. I need to be left alone. The neighbors have filed a formal complaint. If you don't cooperate, this gets worse." Horace looked at Dalton, really looked at him, saw the discomfort in his eyes, the guilt. "You ever serve?" Horace asked. Dalton blinked. "No, sir." "Then you don't know what it's like to give everything and get nothing back." He closed the door. Stevens turned to Dalton. "That's obstruction. We can escalate this. Let's just file the report." "He's refusing to comply." "I said let's file the report." They left. Across the street, Margaret watched. She was already composing another email, but something was happening that Margaret couldn't see. Something that would arrive in less than 48 hours. At Dulles International Airport, a private jet touched down at 11:32 p.m. No commercial markings, no passenger manifest available to the public, just a tail number registered to a diplomatic entity. The jet taxied to a private hangar. The door opened. 6 men in dark suits descended first. Security, professional, armed. Then came Victor. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Horace's car. His hair was silver. His face was lined with age and authority, but his eyes were the same eyes that had looked up at a young soldier 47 years ago and whispered, "Thank you." He stepped onto American soil and breathed deep. "How far?" he asked in accented English. One of the security men checked his phone. 2 hours by car, Your Majesty." Victor nodded. "We leave at dawn." Inside the hangar, 3 armored SUVs were waiting. Black, bulletproof, anonymous. Victor didn't sleep that night. He sat in a hotel suite overlooking the Potomac River and held a photograph. Creased, faded, 47 years old. The photograph showed a young soldier kneeling next to a small boy. The soldier was smiling. The boy was crying. Between them was half a chocolate bar. Victor had carried that photograph across 3 continents. Through university, through military service, through his coronation, through marriage and fatherhood, and the weight of a crown he never asked for. And now, finally, he would return it to the man who saved his life. Thursday morning arrived cold and grey. Horace woke at 5:47 a.m. Same time he'd woken every day for 60 years. Military habit, impossible to break. He made coffee, burned toast, took his pills, sat in his recliner. The television played. He didn't watch. At 9:15 a.m., the knock came again. This time it wasn't the police. It was Margaret Thornton, and she'd brought reinforcements. Horace opened the door to find 7 neighbors standing on his porch. Margaret at the front. The others arranged behind her like a firing squad. "Mr. Gentry," Margaret began, her voice sharp. "We're here representing the Willowbrook Estates community. We've drafted a formal petition demanding immediate compliance with HOA regulations. You have 72 hours to bring your property up to code, or we will pursue legal action, including fines, liens, and forced sale." She thrust the petition toward him. Horace didn't take it. "We're also here to inform you," Margaret continued, "that your behavior has created a hostile environment. Your refusal to maintain basic standards is affecting everyone's property values. This is unacceptable." Behind her, Richard Thornton nodded. So did the Hendersons, and the Patels, and the Johnsons. Horace looked at each of them, one by one, saw the judgment in their eyes, the disgust, the certainty that they were right and he was wrong. "You done?" he asked. Margaret's jaw tightened. "Mr. Gentry, this is serious. I asked if you're done. We're not leaving until... Then I'm closing the door. You can't just ignore this. Watch me." The door closed. Outside, the neighbors stood in stunned silence. "Call the police," Margaret said. "Now!" Richard pulled out his phone, but before he could dial, something happened. A sound, low, growing, the rumble of engines. Everyone turned. 3 black SUVs turned onto Willowbrook Lane, moving slow, deliberate. The kind of vehicles that didn't belong in suburbs. The kind of vehicles that carried people who didn't ask permission. The SUVs stopped in front of 1247. Doors opened. 6 men in dark suits emerged. Earpieces, sunglasses, hands resting near concealed weapons. The neighbors backed away instinctively. One of the security men approached. "Clear the area. Now." "Excuse me?" Margaret's voice cracked. "This is private property. Ma'am, I'm not asking. Clear the area." Richard grabbed Margaret's arm. "Let's go. We have a right to be here. Margaret, let's go." They retreated to the sidewalk. The other neighbors followed, confused, frightened, watching. The security men formed a perimeter. 2 at the street, 2 at the driveway, 2 at the porch. Then the door of the center SUV opened. Victor stepped out. He wore the same charcoal suit. No crown, no sash, no visible symbols of royalty. But authority radiated from him like heat. The way he moved, the way the security men deferred, the way the air itself seemed to shift. He walked toward the porch. Officer Dalton's patrol car turned onto the street. He'd been called about a disturbance. He saw the SUVs, the security, the man in the suit. He parked and approached cautiously. "Sir, I'm going to need you to identify yourself." One of the security men intercepted him, showed him a diplomatic credential, whispered something. Dalton's face went pale. He stepped back, nodded, returned to his car, but didn't leave. Victor reached the porch. He looked at the peeling paint, the broken mailbox, the worn welcome mat that hadn't welcomed anyone in years. He knocked 3 times, gentle, respectful. Inside, Horace heard the knock. He sighed, pushed himself up, shuffled to the door expecting another confrontation. He opened it and froze. Victor stood on the porch, hands clasped in front of him. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Victor smiled, a small, trembling smile. "Hello, soldier," he said softly. Horace stared. His mind raced, trying to place the face, the voice, the eyes. Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out the photograph, held it up. Horace looked at the photograph, at the young soldier, at the small boy, at the chocolate bar. His breath caught. "No," he whispered. "Yes, you can't be." "I am." Victor's eyes filled with tears. "You saved my life. Do you remember?" Horace's hands started to shake. "The ship, the cargo hold. You were hiding. I was starving, terrified, alone, and you found me. You were just a kid. You gave me your rations. You carried me to the refugee center. You stayed with me until they found my aunt." Victor's voice broke. "You promised me everything would be okay, and it was, because of you." Horace shook his head. I did what anyone would do." "No." Victor stepped closer. "You did what a good man does, what a hero does." Behind them, the neighbors watched in silence. Margaret's mouth hung open. Richard had forgotten how to breathe. Officer Dalton stood by his car, hand over his heart. Victor reached out and took Horace's hand, the old soldier's hand. scarred and trembling. "I have spent 47 years looking for you," Victor said. "I am the king of Valendria. I have wealth and power and influence. But none of it means anything compared to this moment. Compared to finding you, thanking you." Horace's eyes filled with tears. I don't understand." "You don't have to understand. You just have to accept my gratitude." Victor did something then that made the neighbors gasp. He bowed, not a polite nod, a full, deep bow, the kind of bow that meant reverence, submission, absolute respect. A king bowing to a forgotten veteran on a broken porch in a neighborhood that wanted him gone. When Victor straightened, tears ran down his face. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for my life." Horace couldn't speak. His throat was too tight, his chest too full. Victor turned to his security. "Bring it." One of the men opened the trunk of the SUV and retrieved a wooden box, polished mahogany, engraved with a crest. Victor took the box and opened it. Inside was a medal, gold and sapphire, the highest civilian honor Valendria could bestow. "This is the Order of the Golden Lion," Victor said. "It is given to those who have shown extraordinary courage and compassion. It has been awarded only 17 times in 300 years. He lifted the medal from the box. "You are the 18th. He placed the medal around Horace's neck. The weight of it settled against Horace's chest. The weight of recognition, of memory, of a life that had mattered. Victor embraced him then, held him tight, and Horace, who hadn't been held by another human being in 11 years, broke. He sobbed into Victor's shoulder, great, heaving sobs that came from a place deeper than grief, deeper than loneliness. They came from a place that had been empty for so long it had forgotten what fullness felt like. Victor held him through it, didn't let go, didn't rush him. When Horace finally pulled back, Victor smiled. "I have a request," Victor said. "Anything. Come with me to Valendria. Be my guest. Let me show you what your kindness built. Let me give you the honor you deserve." Horace looked at the medal, at Victor, at the SUVs, at the neighbors standing frozen on the sidewalk. He thought about the petition, the complaints, the police, the loneliness. He thought about Dorothy, about what she would say. She'd say, "Go, soldier. You've earned this." Horace nodded. "Okay." Victor's smile widened. "Pack what you need. We leave today." Horace turned and walked back into his house. He moved through the rooms like a ghost, grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, threw in clothes, medications, a photograph of Dorothy. He paused in the living room, looked at the recliner, the worn fabric, the broken springs. He wouldn't miss it. He walked out the door for the last time. Victor waited on the porch. When Horace emerged with his bag, Victor took it from him and handed it to security. Then he offered Horace his arm. Together, they walked down the driveway. Officer Dalton approached. "Mr. Gentry, about the citation." Victor turned to him. "There will be no citation, no fines, no legal action. Am I clear?" Dalton nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Absolutely." They reached the SUV. Victor opened the door himself. Horace climbed in. Victor followed. Before the door closed, Victor looked out at the neighbors, at Margaret, at Richard, at all of them. "Shame on you," he said quietly. "Shame on all of you." The door closed. The SUVs pulled away. Margaret stood on the sidewalk, face white, hands trembling. Richard stared at the empty driveway. The Hendersons, the Patels, the Johnsons. All of them stood in silence. Officer Dalton got in his car and drove away. He'd file a report later. Right now, he needed to think. The neighborhood was quiet. 12:47. Willowbrook Lane sat empty. Lawn overgrown, paint peeling, mailbox broken. But inside that house, something had changed. The silence wasn't lonely anymore. It was just silence. And somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, In a private jet flying toward a small kingdom by the North Sea, an old soldier sat next to a grateful king and smiled for the first time in 11 years. The jet leveled at 35,000 feet. Horace sat in a leather seat that felt like sitting on a cloud. He'd never been in a plane like this. Hell, he'd never been in a plane that wasn't military transport or economy class with Dorothy on their one trip to see her sister in Florida. Victor sat across from him, a glass of water in his hand, watching Horace with the kind of attention that made the old soldier uncomfortable. "You don't have to stare," Horace said. Victor laughed. "I'm sorry. It's just, I've imagined this moment for so long. And now that it's here, I'm afraid if I look away, you'll disappear. I'm not going anywhere." "Good." The cabin was quiet except for the hum of engines. One of the security men brought Horace a sandwich, turkey and Swiss on wheat. Horace ate it slowly, savoring each bite. It had been a long time since food tasted like anything other than obligation. "Tell me about your life," Victor said. "After the war. After you found me." Horace swallowed, set down the sandwich. "Not much to tell. I doubt that. I came home, got a job at a factory, met Dorothy, got married, worked 42 years, retired. She got sick, she died. That's it." Victor leaned forward. "That's not it. That's the outline. I wanted the story." Horace looked out the window. Clouds stretched to the horizon like a white ocean. "Why?" "Because you matter to me. Because I need to know the man who saved me." Horace was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "I met Dorothy at a church social, 1953. She was wearing a yellow dress. I was wearing my discharge uniform because it was the only decent thing I owned. She smiled at me, and I forgot how to talk." Victor smiled. "We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Her parents didn't approve. They wanted her to marry a doctor or a lawyer, not some factory worker with bad knees and nightmares. But she didn't care. She said I was hers and that was that." Horace's voice softened. "We tried to have kids. Couldn't. Doctors said it was me. Something from the war. Exposure to chemicals or radiation or who knows what. Dorothy said it didn't matter. Said we'd make our own family. And we did. We had each other. That was enough." He paused, swallowed hard. "She got cancer in 2012. Pancreatic. They gave her 6 months. She lasted 8. Fought like hell. But in the end," his voice broke, "in the end, she was just tired. And I held her hand and told her it was okay to go, that I'd be okay. But you weren't," Victor said gently. "No, I wasn't." They sat in silence, the kind of silence that holds grief without trying to fix it. Finally, Victor spoke. "She sounds like she was extraordinary." "She was. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you." Victor smiled. "How do you know?" "Because she liked everyone, even the people who didn't deserve it." The jet flew on. Hours passed. Horace dozed. When he woke, Victor was still watching him. "You really need to stop that," Horace muttered. "I can't help it." They landed in Valendria at 6:42 a.m. local time. The airport was small, private. A red carpet had been rolled out on the tarmac. A delegation waited at the bottom of the stairs. Horace looked at Victor. "This is too much. This is not enough." They descended together. The delegation bowed. Horace didn't know what to do, so he nodded awkwardly. A woman in a navy suit stepped forward. "Your Majesty, welcome home." "Thank you, Elise." Victor gestured to Horace. "This is Horace P. Gentry. He is to be treated as a guest of the highest honor. Anything he needs, anything he wants, it is to be provided immediately." Elise bowed to Horace. "It is an honor to meet you, Mr. Gentry." "Just Horace?" "Of course." They were escorted to another SUV. This one was even nicer than the ones in Virginia. They drove through the capital city. Cobblestone streets, medieval architecture, flower boxes on every window, people walking to work with coffee cups and briefcases. It looked like a postcard. "This is beautiful," Horace said. "This is home," Victor replied. "And for the next 2 weeks, it's your home too." They arrived at the palace. It wasn't the largest palace Horace had ever seen in pictures, but it was the most elegant. Cream-coloured stone, tall windows, gardens that looked like paintings. Inside, the staff lined up to greet them. Horace shook hands until his arthritic fingers ached. Everyone smiled at him. Everyone thanked him. He didn't understand why. Victor led him to a suite on the 3rd floor. The room was bigger than Horace's entire house. A 4-poster bed, a fireplace, a balcony overlooking the gardens. "This is where you'll stay," Victor said. Horace stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. "I can't." "You can, and you will." Victor placed a hand on his shoulder. "Rest. Tonight, we have dinner. Tomorrow, I show you the city. But right now, you rest." Victor left. Horace stood alone in the suite. He walked to the bed and sat down. The mattress was soft. Too soft. He'd never sleep on something like this. But when he lay back, exhaustion hit him like a wave. And for the first time in 11 years, Horace P. Gentry slept without nightmares. He woke to a knock on the door. A young man in a white jacket entered carrying a tray. "Good evening, Mr. Gentry. His Majesty requests your presence for dinner in 1 hour. I've brought you something to wear." The young man hung a suit in the closet. Navy blue, tailored, expensive. Horace showered, shaved, put on the suit. It fit perfectly. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked dignified. Dinner was in a private dining room. Just Horace and Victor. A table set with crystal and china. Candles flickering. Victor stood when Horace entered. "You look good." "I look ridiculous." "You look like the hero you are." They sat. Courses came one after another. Soup, salad, fish, lamb, dessert. Each dish more elaborate than the last. Horace ate slowly, still not used to food that tasted like care. "Tell me about Valendria," Horace said between courses. Victor's face lit up. "We're small, only 400,000 people, but we're prosperous. Tourism, banking, technology. We've managed to stay neutral through every conflict since World War II. We're peaceful, safe, happy. Sounds like paradise. It's not perfect, but it's good. And it's good because people like you made it possible." Horace frowned. "I didn't do anything for Valendria. You saved me, and I came here, and I built a life. And that life led to leadership, and that leadership led to policy, and that policy led to prosperity. Everything connects, Horace. Everything matters." Horace looked down at his plate. "I just gave you a chocolate bar. You gave me hope, and hope is everything." After dinner, Victor walked Horace through the palace, showed him portraits of past kings and queens, showed him the throne room, the library, the chapel. In the chapel, Victor stopped in front of a stained glass window. It depicted a soldier kneeling next to a child. "I commissioned this 10 years ago," Victor said, "before I even found you. It's my memory of that day, the day you saved me." Horace stared at the window, at the colors, at the light filtering through. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "You deserve more." They stood in silence. Then Victor spoke again. "Tomorrow, I want to show you something. Something important." "What?" "You'll see." The next morning they drove to the edge of the city, to a neighborhood of small houses and narrow streets. Children played in the alleys. Laundry hung from balconies. Victor led Horace to a community center. Inside, dozens of people waited. Elderly men and women, middle-aged couples, young families. When Victor and Horace entered, everyone stood. Victor addressed them in Valendrian. Horace didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Reverence, gratitude. Then Victor switched to English. "Horace, these are the children of refugees, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. People who are alive today because someone like you showed compassion during the war, because someone like you saw humanity instead of burden. One by one, people approached Horace, shook his hand, hugged him, thanked him. An old woman with tears in her eyes held his face in her hands. My father was on that ship. He told me about the American soldier who gave away his food, who carried children, who stayed when others left. That was you. Horace couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. A young man stepped forward. My grandmother survived because of men like you. She lived to raise my mother. My mother lived to raise me. I'm a doctor now. I save lives because you saved hers. More people, more stories, more gratitude. By the time they left, Horace was shaking. In the car, he turned to Victor. Why did you do that? Because you needed to see. You needed to know that your life mattered, that your kindness rippled forward, that you are not forgotten. Horace looked out the window, watched the city pass by. I thought I was nobody. You were never nobody. If this story touched your heart, click like and subscribe to honor those who served. The days that followed were a blur. Victor took Horace everywhere. Museums, monuments, schools, hospitals. Everywhere they went, people recognized Victor, and Victor introduced Horace. This is the man who saved my life, and people would stop, listen, thank Horace. At a school, children sang a song for him. At a hospital, a veteran in a wheelchair saluted him. At a monument to war refugees, Victor unveiled a plaque with Horace's name, in honor of Horace P. Gentry, whose compassion reminded us that humanity survives in the smallest acts of kindness. Horace stood in front of that plaque and wept. On the seventh day, Victor took him to the coast. They stood on a cliff overlooking the sea. Waves crashed against the rocks below. Seabirds circled overhead. This is where I come when I need to think, Victor said. When the weight of the crown gets too heavy. Does it get too heavy? Sometimes. But then I remember that boy in the cargo hold. I remember your face, your kindness, and I remember why I do this, why I lead. Because someone showed me that people can be good, that the world can be better. Horace looked at the sea. I never thought about it like that. I just did what felt right. That's what makes it matter. They stood in silence. Then Horace spoke. I'm glad you found me. Victor smiled. So am I. On the 10th day, Victor held a state dinner in Horace's honor. Diplomats, ministers, generals, all of them gathered to meet the man who saved their king. Horace wore the same navy suit, the medal around his neck. He shook hands until his fingers went numb. He smiled until his face hurt, but he didn't mind, because for the first time in 11 years, he felt seen. During the dinner, Victor stood and raised his glass. I want to tell you all a story, he began. A story about a boy who lost everything. His parents, his home, his hope. A boy who hid in the dark and waited to die. The room was silent, but he didn't die because a soldier found him. A soldier who had every reason to walk away, who had every reason to save his rations for himself. But he didn't. He knelt down, he smiled, he shared what little he had, and he promised that everything would be okay. Victor looked at Horace. That soldier is here tonight. His name is Horace P. Gentry, and I owe him everything, my life, my crown, my purpose, everything. Victor raised his glass higher. To Horace, a hero who never asked for recognition, a man who never sought glory, but who deserves both. The room erupted in applause. Everyone stood, everyone raised their glasses. Horace sat frozen, overwhelmed, grateful. After the dinner, Victor walked Horace back to his suite. I have something to ask you, Victor said. What? Stay. Horace stopped walking. What? Stay here in Valendria. Let me give you a home, a life. You don't have to go back to that place. to those people who treated you like you were nothing. Horace looked at Victor, saw the sincerity in his eyes, the hope. I don't know. Think about it, please. That night, Horace lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Willowbrook Lane, the overgrown lawn, the peeling paint, the neighbours who hated him. He thought about Margaret Thornton's face, the petition, the police. He thought about his empty house, his broken recliner, his silent rooms. And then he thought about Dorothy. What would she say? He closed his eyes and heard her voice, clear as day. Stay, soldier. You've earned this. The next morning, Horace found Victor in the garden. I'll stay, Horace said. Victor's face broke into a smile. You will? On one condition. Anything. I don't want a palace. I don't want servants. I just want a small place. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can be myself. Victor nodded. Done. Within a week, Victor had arranged everything. A cottage on the edge of the city, 2 bedrooms, a small garden, a view of the hills. Horace moved in with his duffel bag and his photograph of Dorothy. He set the photograph on the mantel, looked at her smiling face. We made it, he whispered. We finally made it. The months that followed were the happiest of Horace's life since Dorothy died. He tended his garden. He walked through the city. He made friends with his neighbours. Victor visited often. They'd sit on the porch and drink coffee and talk about everything and nothing. Do you miss America? Victor asked one afternoon. Horace thought about it. I miss Dorothy. I miss what we had. But America, he shook his head. America forgot me a long time ago. Valendria won't forget you. I know. 1 year after Horace arrived, Victor held a ceremony. He declared a new national holiday, Day of Compassion, a day to honor those who show kindness to strangers, who see humanity in the forgotten. The first person honored was Horace. He stood on a stage in the Capitol Square. Thousands of people gathered. Children waved flags. Adults cheered. Victor placed a hand on Horace's shoulder. You changed my life, and in doing so, you changed this nation. Thank you. Horace looked out at the crowd, at the faces, the smiles, the gratitude. He thought about the boy in the cargo hold, the chocolate bar, the promise. He thought about Dorothy, about the life they built, about the love they shared. He thought about Willowbrook Lane, about the neighbors who wanted him gone, about the house he'd left behind. And he realized something. He wasn't forgotten anymore. He was remembered. He was honored. He was home, back in Willowbrook Estates, 1247. Willowbrook Lane sat empty for 6 months. The lawn grew wilder. The paint peeled further. The mailbox finally fell over. Margaret Thornton tried to get the HOA to seize the property, but every attempt was blocked. Lawyers appeared. Injunctions were filed. Diplomatic channels were invoked. The house was untouchable. Eventually, Victor purchased it, had it demolished, turned the lot into a memorial garden. A plaque was installed. In memory of Horace P. Gentry, a man who gave everything and asked for nothing. May we all remember that kindness is never wasted. Margaret Thornton moved away 2 years later. Couldn't stand looking at that plaque every day. Couldn't stand the reminder of her cruelty. The other neighbors stayed, but they never forgot. Never forgot the day a king came to their street and showed them what real honor looked like. Officer Dalton kept the citation in his desk drawer. Never filed it, never threw it away. Just kept it as a reminder. A reminder to see people, to look past the surface, to remember that everyone has a story. And Horace lived in his cottage in Valendria for 7 more years. He tended his garden. He walked through the city. He attended state dinners and school visits and hospital ceremonies. He was loved. He was honored. He was remembered. And when he died at 85, peacefully in his sleep, The entire nation mourned. Victor gave the eulogy. This man saved my life with a chocolate bar and a promise. He taught me that kindness is the most powerful force in the world, that compassion can change everything, that one person can matter more than they ever know. Victor's voice broke. I will miss him every day, but I will honor him forever, because he showed me what it means to be human, what it means to be good. Horace was buried next to Dorothy. Victor had her body moved from Virginia to Valendria, had them laid to rest together in a cemetery overlooking the sea. 2 headstones, side by side. Horace P. Gentry, soldier, hero, friend. Dorothy M. Gentry, beloved wife, forever remembered. And between the headstones, a small plaque. Together again, as it should be. Years later, children in Valendria still learn about Horace, about the American soldier who showed compassion when the world showed cruelty, about the man who saved a king with kindness. They learn that heroes don't always wear capes, don't always carry swords, don't always make headlines. Sometimes heroes just share what they have. Sometimes heroes just keep promises. Sometimes heroes just see people when everyone else looks away. And that's enough. That's everything. If you believe every life holds a story worth remembering, subscribe to this channel and join our community.